Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. Sarah's going to be right back. She had a very important call she needed to take, and we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Main Line, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we've got an interesting show today. You know, we're in this kind of January time period. The election's over. We're seeing that there's maybe some news of, rates are kind of stabilized right now. And we're going to be talking about first why we're not seeing a national home price correction despite these economic conditions. We're also going to talk about what President Trump can actually do to help the housing market after all these executive orders that he put out there. And lastly, we're going to share a stat. This was mind-blowing to me, that 71% of agents did not sell a home last year, according to Redfin. And we're going to talk about what that means for agents, what they can do to differentiate themselves, because if you're part of that 29%, you better be putting the word out. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how we can help you navigate all of these things that we're talking about here, you can do that with the link in the comments. So why we're not seeing a national home price correction. This is very, very interesting here because there's all kinds of data that's out there. Logan Mohtashami over at Housing Wire does this, and he came out with an article the beginning of this week or the end of last week that said even his price forecast was low. I think a lot of people thought that prices were going to appreciate at a much more normal rate in 2024 than they actually did. If you look at what happened locally in our market, just to give you some perspective, and our Bright MLS is always really good at this stuff here, and it'll share with us what's going on year over year. So if you look at just what happened, the median sale price in the entire metro area for metro areas, I should say, for the Bright MLS, prices were up 6.6%. That's a really big jump. If you look at what happened in the Philadelphia area, prices were up 8.7% on the median. These are incredible numbers, and there's a lot of reasons why we're not seeing that home price correction. So, Sarah, what's your take on all this? I mean, you're in the field every day. You're talking to buyers, you're talking to sellers. What do you see as the reason behind the lack of this home price correction that I think a lot of people were kind of expecting?
Yeah, sorry. And so I missed the beginning of it. So it was that homes
a lot of people expected a price correction, and we saw incredible appreciation over the past 12 months, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon.
Right. And so people were anticipating prices to come down.
Maybe not come down, but appreciated more like 2 to 3%. I mean, we're seeing 8.7% in Philly and the metro area, 6.7% in all of in Bright's MLS service area, which is like DC, Jersey, Delaware, those places.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is one of those things that you have to assume in most cases that prices are not going to come down or even stay steady. Obviously, you don't want to get overzealous and go in offering way too much to the point where it's not going to appraise or it's going to take a very long time for you to get that value back and built into the home. I think running comps is important. Looking at pending sales, I will often reach out to, depending on the type of home and if it is like a really good comparable, if something's under contract, I will reach out to the agent. I know they're probably not going to tell me exactly what the offer amount was for, but I'll be like, can you give me like a ballpark, or did it go over? Did it go significantly over? And you start throwing some words in there to see if you can get a feel for where those pending transactions are going, because that's a good indicator of active right now, like for what's going on right now, where things are closing at.
See, that's the sign of a good agent right there. You're not just relying on the data, but you're actually getting on the phone, talking to people about what's happening real time in the market, because this data is so lagged, right? Even if home sells today, that price typically isn't published for like 2 months. So you're kind of chasing the market down. And when you ask better questions like that, you can get an idea. You can advise people a little better. You may not get the exact answer, but that's asking better questions, which we talk about all the time.
And my advice is always in those situations, don't send an email or a text. Get on the phone, because they're definitely not going to give you much information if that's how you're doing it. But and just kind of giving your like, hey, like I've got a buyer, we're looking for this one, we're really trying to be competitive, but like, we got to figure out numbers here. And people are often people often want to be helpful. Not always, but like you come across people that do want to be helpful. So if you get one of those, it's great.
Well, and I love that you said pick up the phone, because a text like that or an email, it doesn't have any context. There's no tonality. And when you talk on the phone, like that creates a conversation, so you can, all right, maybe they're not going to tell you it's sold for X price to the penny. You get an idea. It's sold in the range, and that's only going to help people that you're trying to advise. And that's what a conversation does versus like a text or an email. So
right. Or even if you like are wanting to be helpful, like I don't know that I would put in writing back a number. You're creating a trail.
Yeah, well, I think that's, there's a conversation, right, versus like something that's documented, and I think that's a really smart thing to do. I mean, you're not doing anything wrong, but how else do you answer that question? You can't, like, was it too high? Was it too low? You're not going to have that back and forth. So that's where voice to voice is a very valuable communication technique. So, what we see here in this Altos research article, where that was and there's calls like maybe there's going to be price declines or what's happening. Well, we have these rates that are persistently in the low sevens right now. That's kind of what we're seeing, and it's pretty clear they're not going to be moving anytime soon. Like I don't see this changing at all, right? No. And if you look at, we're going to talk next about what the president can do about this, because he's very like, hey, I'm going to improve the home affordability crisis, but I don't know what he can actually do to make that happen. So when you look at what actually went on and what we're going to expect, this is like a supply and demand thing. I think it's pretty simple. And Barbara Corcoran, she was on CNBC. There was a great Instagram reel about this, where she was on Fox Business, excuse me. And, she said that if housing market rates drop by 1%, you could see prices go up like 10%. I mean, what's your read on that? Because rates are scaring some people off, even though there is a lot of demand out there. I think it's such a great piece of advice there, because there's that magic number that kind of gets people excited. We've seen this.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, I think that when rates come down, people both come out of the woodwork and start getting back into, the search again and to putting offers in again. And then people that have been searching are like, oh, let's take advantage of this rate. And they're willing to come up higher. So it's kind of it's happening from multiple angles for how people are bidding up. And if you go up on the price, that's the price. Now, if you if you're able to secure the home at a lower price, even if it's not the most ideal interest rate, if they do drop a full percent, you've gotten the home at the price that isn't the one that everybody else is coming in and going up tenfold over, and you're able to refinance.
Well, that's good advice. And that's what a lot of people, I mean, if I'm a consumer right now, I'm listening to what Sarah said there, because the way I see this, like for every one buyer that's out there actively looking, there's likely 10 on the sidelines that are waiting for something to happen. Yeah. And there is a magic number out there that gets people off the fence. Keeping Current Matters, they put this chart out there. We've looked at it like a number of times, where it's like dark green, maybe a medium green, then like a light red, and then a dark red. And right now we're in that like light red area in the low sevens. And then once you get into that 6.5 to 7 range, it goes like medium green, where there's a lot more intent. And then obviously closer to 6, it's that really dark, heavy green. And that's absolutely going to happen. So if the predictions are 6.34% by the end of the year is what we're seeing. There's like 26 different predictors that was the average. If that happens, I mean, and you're waiting, there's going to be so much more competition. And then you're still looking for a house. Like that's a year out of your life that you're not where you want to be. And I don't think a lot of people really see that.
Right. Because I mean, I think what we have to keep in mind here is we are January 28th. Like they're talking that it could hit that rate probably by December 28th.
Yeah.
Like we're very, very far away. So that is 11 months of still searching, still, and if you're out there actively looking, you probably have a reason to make the move. So you're probably not living in a like ideal situation. You need more space, you need to downsize, whatever your reasoning is. And that's a lot of months that you could have been already starting to make those mortgage payments, and that you could have secured the property. Because if when they dip into that, competition really spikes.
And you look at, to answer the question why we didn't see a home price correction. We're working from the lowest sales figure ever recorded in history in 2024. Significantly lower when we had when other adjustments were made for like the workforce or like COVID-19 and those sort of things. And when existing home sales crashed in the early 80s, they declined from 4 million to 2 million. So there's similarities between the early 80s and the current housing market, because both periods, they experienced significant home price growth, a massive sales decline, and no home price decreases. So you've got this kind of like weird storm that's happening where, especially places like the Northeast, like you can't build your way out of this.
Right.
That's not going to happen. Active inventory typically decreases towards the end of the year and then starts to ramp up, but it didn't drop below 1 million, which it did the year before. So inventory's kind of hung around there a little bit. And there's so many economic factors right now that I don't see anywhere where there's a home price correction unless like something really bad happens.
Right.
Like
right.
global pandemic, financial meltdown, like that sort of stuff. So, when you get buyers that say this, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's always good to revisit. So what do you say to someone when like, hey, I'm waiting for rates to come down, Sarah? Like we're not doing anything. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I think the first question I want to ask is what rate are you waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say something that is so unrealistic, I tell them that that's very unrealistic. If it is, something that potentially could happen, but way down the line, you just kind of want to ask, well, what does your life look like between now and then? And then if prices do continue to increase, and if it hits the rate that you're looking for, a lot of other people are waiting for that as well. So while you're going to have the appreciation that just occurs naturally over time, plus people flooding in because of the low rates to push it up. So if you got that rate but had to pay this amount, this would be your monthly payment, versus here we've got the rate we've got now, but you could get it at this price. Here's your monthly payment.
I think there's something to be said for getting the move over with. Like I think people underestimate how much it sucks to move.
Right.
I mean, like it's one of the most stressful things. And if you find a place where you're going to live next 20 years, I mean, and it's in your budget, like this isn't always like just about the numbers. There's about quality of life here too. So that's obviously a great way to answer that question. What about the people that say they're waiting for more inventory? How do you deal with that? Because I have a certain belief about that sort of question that comes up, but how do you handle that?
So I think it, to some degree, depends on, like, is it somebody that is very, very tied to a particular neighborhood, a particular street? Like, is there like a super, super tiny radius that they are wanting to stay within, but they would pay to do it, like their budget would allow them to offer like very competitive numbers for that, but nothing's unlocked. In that case, I've sent out letters to, I mean, I'm not going to do it for a whole school district, obviously, but if there's like a very
that
small,
would be wild.
Oh my gosh. Like, can you imagine the postage?
It's 73 cents or 74 cents for a stamp
God.
right now. And you figure, I mean, just how many homes are in these schools? That's wild.
Right. So if it really is something where it's like, yeah, there actually might not be inventory because you really want to be in this one area, but if something opened up, you would pay what needed to be paid to get in there, I'll send letters. If it's or if it's a place that allows you to door knock, I'll door knock. If it's not that situation, but like, we've got like, this is the area we would like to be in, this is what we would want to pay, this is what we'd want the condition to be. Then, and if nothing's falling into those three pieces together, then which one can we adjust? Which one can we move? Because we might have to move one of them. And just let me show you stuff that's outside of these three things, and then see if that is the right fit. Sometimes people think they have to be in a certain area, and then when they see, but they might not like what they're getting for their money in that area. So then suddenly everything that you look at in what they're saying they want is too expensive, is not big enough, is, whatnot. So if you're able to be like, well, then let's see what things look like that maybe are a little bit larger and a little bit less, but in a different area, and see which one ends up feeling better.
Well, and what you're doing there is you're giving people options, and you talked about they don't like the pricing. Well, they might not like the taxes in some of these
Mhm.
areas. Like there's some areas around here that we deal with that have very high taxes compared to others. And if you don't need to be there, that's a little bit of a different situation. You talked about the person that's very specifically looking for a home. And I'm a big believer that if that's the case, you've got to have a strategy with them. Like you're talking about targeting homeowners. I love that. And also letting them know, like, hey, we need to be ready like at all times. This is
Right.
not something where we can look for a couple months, then get frustrated and not. You may be looking for a year or two. And I'm
Mhm.
going to be along for the ride with you during
Yeah.
that year to make sure that we're identifying the right properties. And I've had many clients like that. We look at like 3 homes in 12 months and
Mhm.
they buy one because they know exactly what they want, which is
Right.
great. You've got to walk them down that path a little bit. And that's really important to let them know you're not looking for a quick sale. You want them to buy the right home, not the next home. And that's language agents really need to start adopting. So,
Right. And then I guess also prepping them that if that home does come up, like you're going to want to be very competitive with your offer because it could be another 12 months until another one comes up.
yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think then that's what all everything that Sarah is talking about here and what we're talking about. This is the difference between a good agent and a great agent. Because a good agent, sometimes they will tell you what they think you want to hear so you get hired. I just
Mhm.
came out of an appointment like that where they said, I don't want you to tell us what you think we want to hear. And I said, well, I wouldn't do that because that's the worst thing I could do.
Right.
And we're going to give you all the news. We can do it politely and professionally. It's not aggressive, but agents are so afraid to deliver bad news. And guess what? There's a lot of bad news when you're looking for these things. We didn't get the house. The septic system failed.
Yeah.
The market does not like your price. We've had 38 people look at the home and nobody's made an offer yet. These are things people need to hear from their agent. And there's a way to present that's in a really nice way.
Yeah.
So, that's something that in a market like this where we've got Barbara Corcoran getting on Fox Business giving great advice. We've got, people saying that there's not going to be a home price crash whatsoever. That's really the kind of conversations that are critical to clients having successful transactions and for agents having successful businesses. So now I want to tie this back locally here because there was an article that came out from Zillow just a couple days ago. Zillow's predictions for the hottest housing markets of 2025. So give me your top five, Sarah. What do you think they would be? Don't read the article.
No, I won't.
That would be
Um,
well, here they are, Tom. It's
wait, this is nationally?
nationally.
Hottest markets. Is Detroit one?
Detroit is not. That's not. I got the top 10 here.
Is there one in Ohio?
Not one in Ohio.
I mean, I wouldn't think there would be, but I was just trying to think of places that would be surprising. Connecticut?
Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, number 4 on the list.
There we go.
Shocking number. They have the lowest inventory in the country right now, which
Yeah.
is a real challenge. Our my friend, I know you know Byron up there, Byron Lazine. I mean, they have a real challenge there.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give them to you here. So
Yeah.
number 1, Buffalo, New York. Second year in a row, it's number 1. Indianapolis, Indiana, number 2. Providence, Rhode Island, number 3. 4 is Hartford. 5, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So, well, and I think this is interesting because they talk about the reasons why behind this. And here's the factors that get evaluated: price growth, inventory, and velocity. So that means the inflow of new listings, and what pace they're coming to the market. Demographics. So, right now, baby boomers and millennials represent 2 enormous generations. They're both very active in the housing market. Baby boomers are not exiting as they age, which is a departure from previous generations, and millennials are aging into their prime home buying years. So they talk about how active those people are, and the methodology was based on forecasted annual home value appreciation, forecasting acceleration in home value appreciation, listing days per home, 2-year change in total employment, and projected change in owner occupied households. So Philadelphia was number 5 there, and is that surprising to you? Because that's easily the biggest metro on the list here. I mean, you got 6 is St. Louis, 7 Charlotte. That's another big metro. 8 is Kansas City, Missouri. 9 Richmond, 10 Salt Lake City. Are you surprised to hear this?
Not really, because I feel like our location is really good. Like we're close to a lot of other major cities. You don't have to pay the same price of some of the major cities.
Mm-hmm.
And there is still, there's still like great opportunity here. So I'm not really surprised.
Well, and I think that's what they look at here. I mean, Buffalo is typically like an undervalued market. Indianapolis, same place. You get a lot more bang for your buck there. Philadelphia, if you look at like the adjacent cities,
Did they write this list before the Bills game when
it's January 7th. So yes, it was before the Bills
yeah,
game.
maybe they were hoping they'd make it to the Super Bowl.
I don't know. Apparently a lot of closeted Buffalo Bills fans at Zillow, maybe. I don't know. I don't think they would do that there. I know I've interviewed Skylar Olson, the chief economist. I don't think she watches any sports, would be my guess. She was talking about like having us over for dinner and having vegetables from her garden.
Okay.
So
I don't know. I think she might be a Bills fan.
I'll ask her. I can email her right now. I agree with you. I mean, but you look at like we got New York to the north, North Jersey, DC. Of all those areas, Boston, we are easily the most affordable market out of all those large metros, and we're the fifth largest metro, sixth largest metro in the country, depending on what you're looking at. So I think that shows some value in the market here. Now, the preface here is these lists come out all the time, so I wouldn't like this doesn't mean that like, and you're going to see real estate agents do this like. Located in the number 5, ranked hottest housing market according to Zillow. That doesn't mean anything. I think it's a recognition of the market that we're in. That our inventory is low. We saw very high price growth last year. Again, the average for the metro on the median over 12 months was 8.7%. You talk about inventory rising. Inventory's up like 12%. Like these are all the things that they're talking about here. So I would imagine if you're an agent or you're a buyer, what this tells me is you better be prepped and know what you're getting into in the marketplace and understand a lot of these trends that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break. We are going to come back and talk about what President Trump can actually do to affect the housing market next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. To learn more, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service.
What do you want to email this to you? Slack it to you?
With the personalized local service you find at Mortgage America.
I'll email them to you. It's forwarded stuff.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over $165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor, because this isn't a transaction to us. It's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call 1 minute. RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's Tom, Toole with an E.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When looking for a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice service to get a great rate. Visit the Sutera team at Cross Country Mortgage. We are your local Pennsylvania lending experts with loans that fit nearly any unique home buying situation, including first-time buyer options, low to no down payment options, and second-see products. Get a free pre-approval now at ccm.com and search for us, the Suteras. That's Sutera at Cross Country Mortgage. When it's time to move, we're right behind you. Equal housing opportunity, subject to credit approval, NMLS 3029,
Oh, they updated that.
366, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income?
Can you open some articles?
Since or not,
It's like
call
saying
us
I didn't
today,
subscribe, but then it says it did. It's very-
692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our
Yeah, real
team
problem.
at Tom Stand by. RE/MAX main
There we
line.
go. It's open here. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about, after all these executive orders that was the most executive orders ever in the past 5 presidential terms that got signed. Like that was
Outrageous.
pretty wild. And you know, good or bad, I mean, you like to see action, and this isn't meant to be political, but they did talk about housing, so that's what we're going to talk about here. And there was an executive order that was signed to address the housing affordability crisis. And I think there's a question here, like, what can the president actually do to help? Because a lot of this has to do with the market more than
Right.
anything else. And what I do appreciate, there's not some like home buyer credit or some sort of like program like that I think could really harm the housing market. Before we get into what the president can actually do, what's your take on that? Just kind of, because this happened like right before the show last week, and then we read it, we talked about it, but there wasn't a whole lot of meat to it.
You mean for the like pertaining to the housing market?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like you're going to need like an actual plan. So, cause I think for last week, it was just like a broad statement of like
regulatory costs
Right.
and increasing housing supply and lowering rates.
Right. So I think that unfortunately with some of these bigger issues like this, there's so many different layers to it that there's a trickle down effect that you have to kind of look out quite a few steps ahead for
Mhm.
doing one thing, how that's gonna, kind of snowball. So I'm hoping that any plan that he comes out with is being like, carefully reviewed with people that can kind of analyze how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and I imagine that would be the case. I mean, the executive order is like a directive more than anything else.
Right.
And you got to like vet these things. I mean, with past administration, there was maybe like 3 signed the first day, or so. I mean, they signed 100. That was incredible. But we'll leave that. That's not what we're going to be talking about here. So, when you look at what he can or can't do, I think the first thing is, like, a lot of people think that, like, although he did appoint Jerome Powell, like you can't tell the Fed what to do. Like that is not part of the job description here. And we do have a Fed meeting coming up this week, so that's going to be pretty interesting. And I think there should be some interesting questions and answers. But he can't tell the Fed to like lower rates. That's not an option. So I know you're not a huge sports fan, but you ever see like the coaches? They really like work the referees.
Mhm.
That's the only strategy he has with the Fed is he's got to work Jerome Powell. Like, hey, like we need rates to come down, like, and just kind of, I think, apply pressure from like a media sense. I mean, I don't know if I don't think Jerome Powell's going to bend, by the way. I mean, that guy doesn't, but he can't, that's the only strategy to actually do anything with the Fed. And it's all going to be based on economic data, including like new home sales, PCE inflation, bond auctions, jobless claims are going to be released on Thursday. So we have all these things happening this week. I don't see that there's anything he could do to influence the Fed except like berate them, talk to them, whatever you're going to call it, something like that. So I think that's probably the only thing that could get done. I mean, I don't really see anything else there. And when we look at what the Fed's planning on doing, let's look at the rate predictions here. So I mean, I doubt there's going to be a rate cut. I mean, the meeting's in 22 hours here. What do we got here? Of course, the website's not coming up. But I think the last time we checked on these odds, it was like, there's a 0.5% chance. Like, I mean, there's no rate cut coming. So I think that's probably safe to say. What about the regulatory costs? What do you think about that, Sarah? Because I think that there was a lot of data that the Biden administration added $50,000 to household consumer costs because of with just regulatory issues that were coming up. And under the previous administration, Trump lowered those by 11,000.
Yeah. So I think if there is fluff in there and there's like red tape and things that are costing time, costing money, and aren't really doing any benefit, like absolutely cut them out. But at the same time, wasn't he increasing all of the tariffs? So we weren't going to actually see, isn't that what we were talking about last week? So I think that like, if you're going to cut, like, I think that's a great step to like look into that. But if you want to actually bring down the housing costs and make things more affordable, as he like said that he was going to do, you can't reduce one and increase another. You're going to be flat. So, look at the things that will bring it down. And but I'm not opposed to that, to looking at to cutting out some of the fluff. And if there are just like ridiculous fees in there that aren't necessary, that are driving up the cost. Get them out of here.
I mean, politicians are notorious for putting pork into bills, and it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to give like this money to my like local cause or something like
Yeah.
that. So, with this Department of Government Efficiency, hopefully they eliminate a lot of that. Like, I think I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, like less spending on nonsense, I'm all for.
Yes.
Especially if it's raising, household costs by $50,000. It's a lot of money.
Right.
That's a lot of money for a lot of people. So now we got mortgage spreads, right? And mortgage spreads, if you don't know what that is, so that's the spread between the actual mortgage rates and where the 30-year comes in. So the 10-year yield and mortgage rates, the ranges that are predicted are, I'll use Logan Motoshami because he always gives a range. He gives a big range, by the way. Range for mortgage rates 5.75 to 7.25. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like,
Okay.
and then a range on the 10-year between 4.7 and 3.8. Now, I also think he's being realistic here because if rates do come down to 6 3/8, that's in that range. Mortgage rates really haven't moved a lot after all this inauguration and election nonsense. They did get some movement on the 10-year, but it didn't cause rates to move much. I think there's a lot of factors here, especially with like the LA wildfires and some other things going on. So unless these the 10-year improves or the spread improves, because the spread's the delta of where the 10-year is coming in and where mortgage rates are. If it doesn't improve and it's still going to be that, where it is right now, rates aren't going to come down. I don't see it happening at all. And I think the question that came up is that does the president have the authority to order someone to purchase mortgage-backed securities in order to improve the spreads? Because that would bring the yield down, or bring the yield up, excuse me, which could help grow sales and get mortgage rates closer to 6%. Logan says no, but what he did say is that there's government-sponsored enterprises which are still under conservatorship. They could use some of their earnings to buy these mortgage-backed securities, and that could cause the spread to improve. But that seems kind of unlikely. I think it's more likely than an order coming from the president. But I don't see that being very likely either. I mean, this is all like kind of harebrained when I'm hearing all this stuff. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Right. And I mean, I think whatever is, allowed or what he can do or can't do, I think there's going to be a lot of headlines for things that he proposes to do and says that he can do. So what will actually be able to come from it and how it all like trickles down and plays out may be different from some of the headlines that we're going to be seeing. And I think it's the same with, when people look at headline, like not to be like political, but headlines for anything that maybe be talking about things on a national level. And like here in with real estate, you need to focus on local. And there can be different headlines or different clips that make you think that a whole bunch of different things are happening. So I guess just, going back and finding out what is current, all you can control is what is currently going on right now. So kind of bringing it back to that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to look at this. I mean, headlines are a joke anyway. I mean, there's writers that will write an article and they don't even come up with their own headlines. Like, I think you need to be very mindful of that. So, what we're looking at here, and I think that the reality is that, the president can influence policy, but he's still got to get approved by all these. This is what checks and balances are for, right? Like, you have the House and the legislative branch, right? You have the executive branch. You have the judicial branch. This is like social studies. I don't even think they call it that anymore.
I don't even know.
Well, I'll find out soon when I talk to my kids. But here's how the government works. And I like that there's the idea. Hey, we want to lower costs. I like eliminating a lot of that regulatory stuff. I think it's going to be very interesting what happens at the Fed meeting when they make the announcement this week. We've also got jobless claims data is going to be released on Thursday, and we did see an increase in jobless claims last week. And it's funny because we see these like peaks of the jobless claims and they always like dip back down and jump back up. And, I don't know that you can even believe the job numbers based on how they get revised all the time anyway.
Right.
I mean, imagine you told a seller, hey, here's your price, but guess what? I changed my mind. We're going to adjust it by 33%.
Yeah.
Probably get fired.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens with these job numbers. So I don't think we're going to hear anything from the Fed this week. I'd be interested to see what kind of questions we get. Now, what this means is that these are the rates we're dealing with right now. So what advice do you have for agents and for consumers, knowing that we're probably not going to see rates adjust too much, I would say over at least the first quarter of the year, and probably up until like June or July.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, obviously it would be great if the rates were lower. I like a steady rate. Like,
Well, tell us more about that.
you know, when you've got, you know, every day, every week, they're jumping up, jumping down. There's always talk that there's about to be movement, that things are about to like shift drastically. It just creates a lot of uncertainty. And then you want to make sure, like, as a buyer, and this makes perfect sense, you want to make sure that you're on the right wave of the rate. But we can't time that. And it will often kind of cause almost like a paralysis to do anything, because if you get under contract today and your rate is one thing, but if you waited a week and it was going to be something completely different, like, I can see why people would want to kind of like hold out or just like see where things go and see how things are going to shift, but then you're going to miss out on good opportunities. And just that sense of things always being like in flux just makes you uncertain. So having something steady and stable kind of like calms things down, lets you take a breath, lets you kind of like see where you're at and get comfortable with the numbers. And then obviously I would love to see the rates come down.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't?
Right. But I don't want to see, like, I don't want a bunch of this going on.
Well, and I think the problem, if rates come down too fast, you're going to see inflation creep back up again,
Yeah.
which is what they're trying to fight. And for some perspective here is that the average 30-year fix in the U.S. is 7.72% from 1971 up until today. That's the last, however many years. I can't do the math. Probably like 50-ish. And when you look at some of these comments here, it looks like the earliest possible rate cut would be in March. And that assumes we're going to see like a drop in inflation. And this is what a lot of people are saying from like Mortgage News Daily and a lot of these other speculators and forecasters that are out there. And, the president is going to make it known if he doesn't like the decision. So I think that's what we talked about, kind of lobbying the referee a little bit here. And because this is where we are, until we see like inflation come down and the labor market break a little bit here, this is what you're dealing with. So if you're trying to wait, you might be waiting years for rates to come down, and that's probably like the most important thing to think about. So, the president, there's going to be an impact here, but everything he's talking about doing, this is like at least a year out. I mean, by the time it makes its way through Washington, those people can't. I mean, they could barely confirm the appointees he had. I mean, and there's like a whole fight about that. So that's just what we're going to be dealing with. So don't expect a flip don't expect a switch to flip here anytime soon. Would be my recommendation to people, as much as Trump wants to bring these rates down. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I've got this really interesting stat here that 71% of agents did not sell a home last year. And we're going to talk about not only what that means when you're interviewing on the consumer side, but also what agents should be doing to earn business and lean into how they're helping people on a regular basis. We'll do that next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
With all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service.
One tab open.
We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements.
I have like
down payment.
I think these are all other browsers open down here.
Pre-approval is free. No
just fighting a losing battle trying to.
For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you. Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life, and an unbeatable culture. Agents who've been with us for at least a year average 30 plus sales. Even our brand new agents average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer
I said you an
real estate
appointment.
scholarships.
Oh, yes,
so you
I
can get
saw
one
that
for free.
come through.
Sally.
Check it out at
Perfect.
scholarshipprogram.com.
She canceled the one time, but she wants to buy like something on the main line and then like sell
Yeah,
it.
she wants to sell her place too, right?
TooleWithAn.com. Get more
It's at the
out of
office
your
too, so you
real
don't have
estate career, and remember the real estate golden rule: you always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When looking
My
for a
client, I
mortgage,
had a
you
settlement
shouldn't
earlier
have to
today
sacrifice
for this
service to
place,
get a great
and he
rate.
just texted
Visit
me and
the
said,
Soterra
"Can
team across
you
country
get me the
mortgage. We are your
postal
local Pennsylvania
postal
lending
address
experts
of the
with loans
apartment?"
that
It
fit
would just
nearly
be that,
any unique
right?
home buying situation, including first-time buyer options,
so.
low to no down payment efficiency products. Get a free
I'll tell them to
pre-approval
verify
now
with the
at
post office. Sometimes those
ccn.com
cameras are weird.
and
That's
search
probably
for
what he's
us,
talking about.
Soterra's. That's
What is it? Well, go to the public records. I'll have the
Cross-country
mailing
mortgage.
address for
When
that.
it's time to move, we're right behind you.
Hit that like the.
Subject to credit approval.
Yeah, you can do that too.
NMLS 1390366, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Have you considered a career in
Yeah,
real
it's on our
estate?
address,
You
yeah.
have control over your income. License or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our system, Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And there is an interesting stat out there that just got posted by some folks at Redfin that 71% of real estate agents did not sell a home last year. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how to work with people that are not part of that 71%, Sarah specifically, you can do that with the link in the comments. Do you believe this stat? That's my first question.
Yes, but I think that it would have to be from a lot of people that are also not actively trying to
Okay.
do any sales. Like, I think that there's probably a lot of people that have their license. Now it was a year of that we had to do like continuing ed. There were like some different things that you would think like, why are you going to put the time into it or pay the money if you're not actually going to do it? But, I think there are certainly a handful of, or like a large pocket of people that have their license, but, and keep it current, but aren't actually like really doing anything. Like maybe it's just like if a family member needs something every couple years or, so, or also, I guess included with that number would be people who got licensed, got into the field, did it for a few months, didn't get a sale, moved on to something else. It's not like there would be it's not like their number gets taken out of the pile. Then,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I think that there is a large chunk of people who get into the industry and don't get a sale and then leave before they get one. So it might not be that like for the whole year they were actively trying to get one.
Good point. Oh, there's people like that come to our company and they're like, this is not what I thought, even though, I mean, they think real estate's going to be easy, right? Yeah. And you were in sales before you got into real estate, so you had a much better perspective, but you watch these shows, like, oh, I'm just going to walk in, going to sell a house, and it's not like that.
Show up, collect a commission check.
Easy money, right? That doesn't exist.
No. Doesn't happen like that.
It does not. We both can attest to that. So I tend to agree with you. I think that's a good way to look at this here. We also saw NAR membership decline last year. So for the first time in a while, the NAR numbers, they dipped below 1.5 million. They were like 149 and change. There was a 2% decrease, or about 45,000 members that fell off of NAR. So
this was for 2024.
Yeah. So it was, and they declined by like 1.6% the year before. So there is a little bit of a decline, but there's always new people getting into the business too. So, so this number here, it's comes from Redfin. The guy's name is Joe Rath. He broke down the view of active agents in the industry, and he actually said like not all realtors are in the business of closing transactions, so that number can be a little bit misleading. There are referral agents out there. There are, agents that maybe are associate brokers or brokers of record. They're not actively selling. That's still not a lot. Like you can't, but it contributes to the data. And I think, like you said, it was a tough year last year. I mean, we came coming off the lowest level of transactions since 1995. So when you see this number, I think there's two things you got to be careful of. One, like if you're a real estate agent, don't start posting this all over social media because you're going to look like a jerk. There's a way to probably position yourself a little better there. And there's also an opportunity that you've got to showcase how you can actually help people. So I know you started sending out like a resume and reviews and stuff like that before you go meet with people. You want to share how you're doing that in like a nice way instead of like, hey, don't hire one of these 71% of idiots.
Right. Like I don't think that there's any reason to put anyone else down. Show what you do. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to, you can like show what you can do and what you do differently. And reviews and testimonials are a great way to support that without saying like, hey, a lot of these other agents aren't going to do any of it. You know what I mean? Like just show them what you do.
Well, and I think that what that does, it's like third-party validation, right? And it just eliminates that concern, like, hey, does this person experience? Because a lot of you're meeting strangers all the time. Like,
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think people really get that. Yeah, they might have got referred to you from like a client, but you never met these people before. You're meeting them at a house, sometimes a property that's vacant, right? Sometimes you're meeting them. They're inviting you into their home. Like, there's a lot of. I'm looking for the right word here, but it's you're in close quarters with people. So the more you can send that stuff, the more it lowers that barrier. Chris Smith, so he came on the show. I don't know if you remember this. He came on the show and he talked about like Michael Jordan and some other stuff. He used to work at Curator, and he had a pretty good way to position this stuff here. He sent an email out today about this. I thought it was pretty insightful. So what he did was, and tell me what you think about this. So there's this stats out here, right? So there's a couple video ideas. So you can do a hook. Did you know 71% of realtors didn't sell a single home last year? And discuss why. Part-time agents, market competition, and how you're different. And then, hey, message me if you want to work with someone who's active in the market. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not terrible.
Okay. Here, not terrible, Chris. I'm going to send you this one. I like this hook better. Let me show you what makes the top 29% of realtors stand out and highlight your unique value, market knowledge, listings, client first service, whatever you do differently, and proud to be, out there helping a lot of folks.
Yeah. See, I like that one more because it's showing what you do, not saying what others don't do.
Yeah. I'm a positive Pete, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there are some times when you need to be very real with folks, especially if you're interviewing. That as a marketing piece, I like number 2 better. And then here's number 3. Here's the hook. Why are so many realtors not closing deals? Let me show you what it takes. Then you share a day in your life and showcase everything you're doing to help your clients.
I do kind of like that for like showing all the back end work because like I feel like the thought is that the agent just shows up and opens the door and then like, oh, they just like write the offer and then like do when really there's a lot of back end stuff that's happening before you get out there. But at the same time, I feel like, well, they feel as though all you're doing is opening the door. No, like it's very easy for people to hit you with like 75 questions, like rattling them off. So like they do expect you to know, but they also like think that maybe it just like is already in your head and that you don't have to like look it up or find it out or do research or make calls or run. Yeah. So like in all of that stuff, piecing all of that together takes time. So I do like the idea of showing like, all right, if my day today is, X, Y, and Z, like this is all the stuff that went into X, Y, and Z. So I like that.
I like this because agents historically do a really poor job of explaining all the things they do behind the scenes. And that comes from that initial appointment where, hey, here's everything we're going to do differently to get your home sold. Here's everything we're going to do differently to help you find a property. And it gives you a lot more confidence because if you get asked the question, hey, what are you doing to help me with my home search? Or what are you doing to sell my home? You did a bad job at the first meeting. And that doesn't create a lot of trust. So I think that's pretty valuable. I do like this one. 2 and 3, thumbs up. The first one, and the first one's probably going to get the most reactions.
No, it probably will.
So I don't think it's bad if you're looking to
like
engage people.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. It'll probably get the most.
That's the best hook.
Yeah.
Maybe not I like to stay positive. I'm with you, Sarah. So there's a couple social posts. So we talked about the power of 71%. And you have like some slides, and we do these for the team. 71% of real estate agents didn't sell a home last year. Here's why many aren't active or full time. What does this mean for you? Work with a realtor who's in the game. DM me to work with an experienced agent who gets results. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's, it is saying that 71% don't, but like it's highlighting what you do. So yeah. Good.
The next one I love, client success story post. Last year I helped blank families. Here's why I'm in the top 29%, ready to make a move. Let's chat. And then you like, anytime you tell the story, see, I don't know that text is necessarily great, but we've been doing this. Like, hey, this person, they lost out on 3 other homes and they met me and we came up with some unique ways to do this. And we found them a great property and there's like a picture of you with that person. that kind of stuff sells. I like the story approach better than anything else that's been suggested here so far.
Right. Yeah, I like the story ones.
All right, here's one more. Email subject line. 71% of realtors didn't close a deal last year. Here's how I sold blank homes in 2024. And then you walk them through like what you do differently for clients is like an email marketing campaign.
Well, I guess as long as you have a good number that you can put in there for what you sold.
Yeah, it's not two, right?
Right? Like 71% sold none. I sold one.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you're already in the 29%, so it's not bad. I do think there's something to this.
Yeah.
And I've used this stuff on social, but it's got to be in a positive way. I really caution agents not to be very negative about this because then they're going to, there was, I forget who said this. We were talking about it, I think last week at the office where like people say stuff, but it's like, so what? Like
Right.
what's in it for the consumer? And you got to be really mindful what kind of energy you're putting out there. I do like making this a talking point. It's got to be positive. I think you got to really make sure that this is like a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So here's some of the other stats from this. So I want to get your reaction as we wrap up the show. 57% of agents in this survey said their business hadn't seen much change as a result of the NAR antitrust settlement last year. Do you believe that? Not believe it? What do you think about that kind of number?
I believe it.
I think good agents, I mean, it hasn't been that big of a change if you know what to say. Now,
Right.
there's some people that still don't know what they're doing. Like I'm getting agreements that are wrong all the time. We've had this conversation where the agents just don't know how to fill out the contract,
Right.
which is
But
a major problem.
even because also I feel like different brokerages want it differently. Like it
Mhm.
isn't totally, unless I'm wrong here.
No, you're
like,
right.
There's like, for us, it's like, oh, this is the right way. But that might not be what another brokerage has determined is the right way. So then you're filling it out according to the way that you think you should do it. And then you know what I mean? So I think there is still, I don't think there is an exact right way. Like it hasn't been said what the right way is yet.
The biggest challenge I've seen is that agents don't know how to communicate with clients. I mean, the mechanics of the agreement, it's silly because you got PAR saying one thing, then you got all these attorneys saying like other stuff, and everyone's kind of arguing about it. And I do agree. There's sometimes there's more than one right way to do things, and that's what people don't realize. So I think that's less of an issue than not knowing how to like talk to people. I know you're not having any issues with these new changes with buyer contracts, but there's a lot of people that are having issues because they don't know what to say.
Right. I mean, I think the fact that we are able to, that there are different versions of it, make it to where it shouldn't be a thing to get that signed.
I agree. I mean, the non-exclusive is such a great tool. I mean,
like I could understand if it was all exclusives and you didn't have flexibility and like your options were it's exclusive and it's 6 months or 12 months. Yeah. I think that like a lot of people would then have an issue there. The fact that you can present it a couple different ways and that it can mean a couple different things, that no one has to be locked into anything. There's like no reason not to be able to get it signed.
Well, and a good salesperson, a good agent, a knowledge broker, they give people options, right? And you've got to count on yourself like, hey, I'm going to win this person over. I'm going to give them such good service they can't go anywhere else. Because if your strategy is to lock people up in contracts, you're not going to have a long lasting business.
Right.
And there are agents, that's their strategy. I'm just going to get them to sign this, and then whatever happens, the home will sell itself. Like that's bad business. So I do agree with you there, Sarah. That's a great point. Here's another question here. So 52% of the people that answered the survey with Redfin, they expect commissions to decline modestly or significantly in the next 12 months. What's your reaction there?
I don't think so.
We're seeing people get paid more because they're delivering more value all the time. I mean, I know, and I think there's an opportunity to go out and like win some serious business. I don't agree with that, and especially if 57%. I mean, it depends who the survey respondents are, right? And if it's a lot of Redfin agents, I mean, Redfin agents, it's a much different model than what you and I do. We're really trying to be someone's advisor. So, and the data actually shows that commissions have been pretty stable over the past 6 months since this got rolled out. So I don't agree with that at all. The last thing I got here, and then I got a question for you. So we see that these questions come up in these surveys all the time where 38% of people said their business has been negatively impacted by the antitrust settlement. I mean, is that surprise? No surprise? Like, what do you think there? and 5% said it was impacted positively.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, but if you're doing what you need to be doing, it shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's forcing some conversations prior to me. Like I would say in the long run, it creates less time wasters because you're forced to have some of these conversations up front. And if somebody can't give you their attention to get through a brief version of what's up and be willing to like either if at that moment they don't have time to fully go through it, if they can't give you another time to talk, or they can't like get back to you to get through what's actually very important, why should you run out and show them stuff?
That 5% number to me says it all, because there's always opportunity when there's changes in any industry.
Yeah.
And if you know how to talk to sellers, you know how to talk to buyers, you put the work in, you prep for this, you can go thrive in this kind of market, because a lot of people probably haven't even read the new agreements yet that they're getting people to sign.
Right.
So I see a lot of opportunity coming out of this. And I think that 5% number, that tells you, the top 5% of any business usually is the one that thrives. So good stuff, Sarah. That's all we got for this week's episode of Toole Time Real Estate Radio. Hopefully you got some value out of this. If you did, just make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to talk to a killer agent, Sarah specifically, click on the link in the comments. We can help you with whatever you need. We'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.